The Gentleman, Time of Tempests, Year 3. They had not come back. Leopold had been walking for a great deal of time, now, so long that he had lost count, and his usual impeccable clothes, maintained by needle and work, not magic or fakery, had seen the worst of it. His back had fallen slightly, and he leaned more on his cane than he had liked, but they had not come back. Perhaps he had made a fatal error in judgment, or perhaps his arrogance had caught up to him, it made no matter. After all, one way or another, things would proceed as they always did, and always would, slowly, foolishly, and inevitably. And in the end, he shuddered and trembled and came to a halt, trying to find shelter from the raging winds against a particularly tall hardwood tree. To his pleasure, it provided not only decent cover from the elements, but exposed a surprising sight below, what appeared to be a cottage, with lit windows and a proper chimney. Rustic for his tastes, yes, but any port in a storm, of course. His gaunt hand rapped sharply at the door, thrice, as was proper. Then thrice again. Finally, and cautiously, Leopold edged the door open ever so slightly, and let himself in. The roomy interior of the cottage was incredibly pleasing, full to the brim of bookshelves and books bound in rich leather, or something akin to it. Paintings depicted idealistic scenes from lives cast in soil, and a large and comfortable chair faced an equally comfortable-looking fireplace. It was not especially cold out today, the season had begun to warm to an almost temperate level. But Leopold was old, and he felt old, and not even the paltry fires of his magic could warm him to his satisfaction. He wondered what that harpy was up to. Perhaps she and Mammon had gone elsewhere. Ah! Would he be the first to be forsaken by his friends, then? Not that they had been friends in the first place, after all.
"Excuse me. What are you doing in my house?"
Leopold froze, hands in front of the fire, so shocked, he even let both fall to his side. For a second, he considered attacking the large, slightly oxen-like monstrosity staring perplexedly at him from multiple eyes, but he was cold. And tired. And perhaps hungry, as well.
"I am lost, sir or madam. Lost and alone. I felt I might stop inside for a moment to warm my bones and collect my temperament, but I did not mean to intrude, nor was I certain this place was inhabited, even with the fire lit."
7 peridot green eyes stared in mild judgment, the vast creature circling on centipede-like legs. Against himself, Leopold found himself at once bemused and curious. Perhaps it was a kind of demon or monster, yes, but then again, it could talk.
"Why do you have no friends with you, human? Did they perish?"
Leopold straightened up, a lie halfway to his lips. "When?"
"To be honest, I don't know where they are. I don't hope they're dead. I truly don't. I might later. I cannot say. As to why they aren't with me, I was foolish. I made mistake after mistake, and I am reaping the fruits of them and trying to salvage something, and I am uncertain where to proceed from here."
Without cares or worries for his own safety, Leopold decided to ignore the beast and continue warming his hands by the fire. It felt good, fire, not only for its warmth but its ability to remind you that you lived, burning you if you grew too close, and serving as a warning that your life, too, was a fragile and flickering thing.
"Are you going to kill me?"
Doubling over with laughter, Leopold managed to finally find his cane and use it to steady himself. His free hand felt for his beard, and he realized with horror how shaggy and unkempt it had grown, quite unbefitting of his station and position. He would rectify it, here.
"No, I thought about it, but I am an old man, and there is only so much blood I can spill from life to life before it ends up showing the same color. If you wish no violence towards me, I shall wish none upon you, creature."
Skittering backwards, the creature, and he decided that creature was a good designation for it, made a strange, half-exasperated and half-pleased noise, deep from under its chitin and fur.
"One last question, human. Why have you been honest?" "What?"
Leopold raised an eyebrow even as he fumbled for his razor. not certain at the nature of the question.
I suppose I just don't have the energy to lie, at the moment. There is no point to doing it when I am so clearly outclassed, without servitor or aid. So I am honest with you, or as honest as I may be. Why, if I may ask? Would you have preferred some ridiculous story, or...
The creature coiled upon itself, strange golden spikes extending from its fur as it gave another exasperated sigh.
I am a judge of truth. Those that lie once, I cut out their tongues and boil them for my supper. Twice, and I cleanse the truth from them. Thrice, and I eat them live and wriggling. You did not lie, however. If you please, you may use my cabin.
The creature was silent as it watched him shave, and Leopold was oddly glad for the company. He wondered, perhaps, if Lorelei was following him. There was nothing he could do if she chose to fight him, though that was true of most any, right now. Power once again eluded him and...
Judge. May I ask you a question? If you are true to yourself as you ask it, you may.
It was an awkward shave. He should have waited, but there would always be time to clean up lost lines and trim errant hairs at some later date, for now he had simply wanted to feel like a human being again, and it was strange. But sometimes it was the simplest things that restored that feeling.
Do you believe in such a thing as justice?
The judge thought for a long time, and Leopold reclined in the chair. Feeling the leather-like material closer, it seemed to be some kind of plant fiber. He was a little disappointed, privately, having somewhat hoped it would turn out to be more ghoulish than that. Perhaps the books would prove more interesting?
Justice exists in the actions we take, and inflict upon ourselves and others. More than that is subjective, rather than objective. If I were to kill you for my laws, you might not find the action just, but if I were to refrain from doing so, you might praise my standards of judgment without fully understanding them.
It was an oddly cute creature, in a way unique to it. It had no visible maw, but the mandible-like spikes around it were charming, petite. He had no word to describe them. Perhaps the creature had species or a name, perhaps it was some strange abomination sprung one of a kind from the earth itself. Regardless.
I ask because I am trying to achieve justice, or something like it. For myself, that is. I am fighting against insurmountable odds, and have fought before. I have lost, and will lose again, and then it shall start, over and over. At what point does that become just? How do you know that you are the arbiter of truth in this scenario?
Leopold tried to remember something, and it felt very far away. The summer was not particularly hot this year. The river, where sometimes boatmen would sail tourists down to the sea, was empty and perfect for dipping into, or fishing, or walking alongside the riverbed. Father had said that any child of his that spent time playing alongside the riverbed was no true child of his, but the family was large, and Leopold had begrudged his siblings their freedom to shirk duty and obligation on a warm, summer day. But books were better than summer in some manner, they were close companions, and they did not pry and ask questions. He had known a girl who collected butterflies. She would prick their pretty wings with pins and put them underneath glass, and he did much the same with books. It was not enough to make either father or mother proud, of course, but to have desired that itself would have been unbecoming. It was the duty of a child to remain distant. Eventually, there would come a time when the estates would be divided up, of course, and he would have to pick up the pieces of their little indiscretions. And they were indiscretions of every kind imaginable, for when the days were pleasant like this, it was idle minds, rather than idle hands, that grew cruel. Hands against his lap, he did awfully desire to be out there with them. But desires had nothing to do with it. Ghislaine was probably out in the stables. Maybe he would do something amusing if given a little scare? Leopold searched the memory for what he was looking for, and sighed.
Perhaps truth is as elusive as justice. Memory certainly is. Tell me, Judge. Certainly you must have taken many who failed your little challenge. What would you advise to those who are searching for those they have lost? I would like very much to find my friends, if it is at all possible. You lie! Roared the beast in satisfaction, and charged at him with an almighty roar.
But even though he had seen death and rebirth, or what he believed to be those things, Leopold did not welcome death, and muscle memory urged him into action with a frightening speed. The first blow stunned the judge, who had not encountered such resistance, the second skewered under its chitin and brought forth pale, peridot-green viscera. And then came the third, and the fourth, and then... Wiping his cane against the covering of the chair, Leopold shook his head. And he was alone, but if he had not been alone, one would have seen a look of utter confusion on his face. And perhaps, just the tiniest bit of regret. I did not lie. And I am very good at lying, but not to myself, and I did not. He tried to rationalize a reason for it. Perhaps his posture had indicated a smugness he did not feel at the moment, or perhaps the creature itself had lied, and simply judged him weak. Or perhaps the lie was earlier. Regardless, it mattered not. Justice, after all, was far more illusory than truth. Sighing, Leopold reclined into the chair, doing his best to ignore the corpse and its stench, and slept. When he awoke, the winds had died entirely. The quiet was a welcome reprieve, at first. But Leopold had grown used to sounds both quiet and profound, and this was something else entirely. Even the air itself seemed to be deadened and thick, it sank upon his lungs, almost like breathing water. Travel would be harsh and exhausting, in such weather. If he had been followed, escaping younger, more active opponents. Resting his head in his hands, Leopold quietly wept. It was not dignified, or gentlemanly, but he was so very tired, and there would be no rest. Still. It did not become anyone to rest on their doubts, when blood still flowed in their veins and they could yet draw the blood of others. His eyes were dry as they opened, and with a slap to the face he felt, if not alive, acceptable. He didn't need anyone else, after all, neither friends nor enemies. Victory was close. And this time, it might result in something, peace, perhaps. An end. Chapter end.